like to thank everyone for attending the webinar today on a very interesting topic, another grant that has just recently been released by the USDA, titled the Pandemic Response and Safety Grant. So my name is Jim Johnson. I am employed by the Small Business Development Center at South Carolina State University, which is an SBA program with a mission for outreach to small business and business education in South Carolina. And at South Carolina State, at our SBDC, we have a specialty with rural business and agriculture. And so this USDA product is of great interest to us in helping farmers in the farm community. And the SBDC at the South Carolina State University is also a part of a center and a collaboration with the Center for Cooperative and Enterprise Development. That center is made up of several different organizations who are all represented here today. And that includes the ACRE program, which is part of the South Carolina Department of Agriculture. And we have Kyle Player on the line with us. Also, Steve Richards with Clemson Extension Agribusiness Program is also part of that collaborative. And Madsen Consulting with Jim Madsen and Jessica Shaw are here today. And all these folks in these organizations have combined together to help the agricultural community in South Carolina. And when things like this grant come available, it's a good way for us to get the message out, try to clarify and explain what this product is and how it can help South Carolina agricultural producers, processors, and wholesalers in this case. We also have on the call with us today Brian Wheat, who is a business consultant and agribusiness specialist with the SBDC. So between Brian and I, we are going to tackle explaining this new program to you. So with that, we'll go ahead and advance this presentation, and we will be going over program overview and eligibility, and Brian is going to handle that. And then we'll transition back over to me, and I will go over to how to apply for these funds and the process of the application and obtaining a DUNS number. If you've never heard of a DUNS number, you're about to find out. So with that, Brian, are you about ready to go through this?
Absolutely, Jim.
Program?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for that. As Jim mentioned, today is focused on the Pandemic Response and Safety Grant Program. That is a recent posting by the Department of Agriculture. The grant portal opened up on the 6th of October and is open until 11:59 Eastern Time on the 22nd of November. And this is a grant that is available to a number of different organizations and entities, which we'll cover in just a moment here in terms of who is eligible. But the grant is a set of funds that will serve to act as relief from different programs that have been put in place or will be put in place as a response to the pandemic. And this particular grant award can range from $1,500 to $20,000 being the maximum award amount. And in the presentation here, there are a couple of different links to follow through on if you want to learn more about that grant and where those funds are coming from, how they've been appropriated, et cetera. And I mentioned those couple of important dates. We are in the open and active application window currently. I know, we have worked with a couple of different clients to apply for this grant. So as you hear from myself and Jim today, we'll be sharing from an educator perspective and from experience as well in navigating this grant. I will say as we get going here that it is one of the easiest grants to apply for that I've ever seen. And the portal is, I think, quite intuitive, quite user friendly. Uh, um, Explain some of the steps that you'll encounter as you go through the application process. But it's a fairly simple grant, and I just got notification my internet connection is unstable. So hopefully, if it should continue to be stable. If something happens, someone can kind of give me a hand up. But we'll walk you through the process. It's fairly easy. One of the great things about this grant is it does not require a match, which is, I think, a rarity in terms of USDA grants. So that is a fantastic, I think, addition to this grant, and breaks down some of the barriers for folks to apply. One of the things that we'll point out as well. Are you clicking through those grants?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the things that we'll point out is this is not on a first come, first served basis, though it would behoove anyone who's interested in applying to go ahead and go through the DUNS application, getting your DUNS number, and go through the application process just to get it done and get it over with, because it is so simple. But what will happen is they'll review these applications as I understand it, after the window has closed and not on a first come, first served. So it doesn't matter if you do it necessarily on October 6th or November 6th, or November 21st. They'll review them all just the same, but it does always pay to get these things out of the way and get them done as soon as possible. This is a new USDA program, so something to note. This is completely new in terms of providing grants to small businesses and nonprofits to receive funding as a response to coronavirus, including measures to protect workers from COVID-19. So this is all in response to how have you changed your business, be it in worker safety measures, infrastructure changes, transportation, a few things that we'll cover in just a little bit, but how have you responded to COVID, or will you respond by the time that the term of the grant ends? In terms of whether or not you're eligible for this grant, it is reserved for small businesses and nonprofits. And so there is a definition of what would constitute a small business. And that varies organization to organization, but the USDA does have a standard for that. And you can actually look up your area of business and look through a series of codes to determine whether or not you're eligible as a small business. If you're on this call, it's likely that you are. A lot of the criteria are, as I see it, as you look through different areas of business, are focused on a cap for income or a cap in number of employees or a combination of that. So it's likely that you could apply, be eligible as a small business if you're on this call. And it also applies to any of the different categories of nonprofits, not just 501c3, but other types of nonprofits are eligible for this particular grant. And businesses that fall under either of those two categories that are in the area of food processing, being a distributor, being a farmer's market, and or a producer are all eligible. There are a few non-eligible producers. As I looked through the list earlier today, there were a couple of really interesting ones. I thought if you are out there and you are a business that provides refrigeration services for furs, then you are unfortunately not eligible. I don't know anyone who is in that business, but if you are, there may be other funds available for you. So a couple of examples of businesses that are in this realm that are not eligible, but you can find all of those and determine, for sure whether or not you're eligible. It's likely that you are because it's a pretty broad cast eligibility set. But you can find out for sure if you click through this link that Jim has provided right here. What it'll provide you is basically a breakdown. You'll start at an umbrella level, and I don't know if you can click through that link, Jim, and bring that page up. But you'll start by assessing your main area of business. Are you in crop production, as you see here, subsector 111? Animal production or aquaculture. So, seafood does apply for this, whether or not you're raising um, seafood, or you're in mariculture or aquaculture, or you're a seafood processor, a handler, or distributor. Um, and then you can determine, are you involved in post-harvest crop activities or food manufacturing? Are you a wholesaler, farmers market, et cetera, non-durable goods, or warehousing or storage, or a distributor? And you can click through those links, and it'll break that larger category into subsets. So crop production, it'll break down into specialty crops, strawberries, et cetera, and they'll all fall under that same code, which you'll want to keep in mind for later on when you apply, and Jim will explain that. But you'll need that code to enter in the type of business that you're working under, and what eligible category that your business falls under. There is about approximately $650 million available for this grant. It's anticipated that there are going to be a large number of people applying for this grant, for a couple of reasons. One, it applies to a number of different businesses for sure. And then also, number two, it doesn't require a match, and the application process is easy. You do not have to apply through grants.gov, or you do not have to have a SAMS account to apply for this grant. You're just using the portal, which is different than most USDA grants. You are required to have a DUNS number, which you'll learn how to do later in this webinar. But given those things, they expect a lot of people to be applying for this. And as I hear, they may be prorating the amount that they make available to people, depending on how many people apply. So you might not get all that you apply for. You may get some of what you apply for. Again, that minimum number being $1,500 and maximum number being $20,000, which could be a significant assistance here for those who are eligible. It's estimated that they'll give about 200,000 grants out. As far as what those funds could apply for and will apply for, they can apply to funds that have been incurred in the past. So beginning January 26th of 2020 and running through December 31st of 2021. So we're applying, and it's before December 31st of 2021. So you can use these funds towards anything prior to this date that you've already incurred, expenses that have been incurred, and we'll talk about the types of expenses that are applied in this instance. Or you can look forward, and the grant application process will include this, but you can look forward to any expenses that you may incur up to the date of December 31st, 2021. And you're going to be estimating those expenses in your application process. I mentioned before, it's not first come, first serve, and there is no cost sharing or matching fund requirement in this instance. So you don't have to put up anything. They're not going to come and ask you for any money. It's just applying for expenses that fall into these categories. So how the funds can be applied, what can you spend this money on, or can you have spent it on if you're looking back towards January 26th of 2020? And am I going to cover this here, Jim, or is that something you want to get into?
I can pick it up from here.
If you want, sure.
Okay. So thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. And if you have more questions on eligibility, you can go to the website, which we can give you the link to that, and you'll see that a little bit later. Or feel free to reach out to any of us. We'll have all our contact information at the end of this presentation. You can email us, and we can help guide you through eligibility, and if need be, you through the application process. But as you'll see, it's pretty straightforward. But the idea is the eligible activities, what expenditures that you made or may make in the next, through the end of the year are eligible to be reimbursed for, or to apply for through the grant that are covered. So the first is your workplace safety. Remember, this is all in response to the pandemic. So how in implementing workplace safety measures to protect workers against COVID-19? How did you spend money over that period of time, and possibly in the next few months? providing personal protective equipment, thermometers, cleaning supplies, sanitizer, hand washing stations, installation and purchase of air filters or new signage, uh, and probably additional activities that are not included on this particular list. Uh, if it was because we might have some very specialized types of industries out there in agriculture who had to make workplace safety accommodations that aren't on this list. So if you feel like you can justify it and it was really for safety, it would be an eligible activity, in my opinion. Another category is market pivots, which would be implementing market pivots to protect workers against COVID-19. So developing and implementing online platforms or utilizing online or print materials to communicate market pivots. This is a pretty big one, especially for direct to consumer producers who really had to change the way they did business because of the pandemic, whether it was bringing on a whole new ordering system online or creating a new process for delivering the goods or the food products to the consumer. Maybe it was creating drop sites or no touch type of situations. Any funds that were expended in trying to make that pivot in that market pivot. And I just give that direct to consumer example. I'm sure it can be applied to many different business models and those across the agricultural spectrum. Also retrofitting your facilities and retrofitting for worker and consumer safety, protect against COVID-19. So installation, purchase of protective barriers made of plexiglass or plastic sheeting, walk-up windows, heat lamps, heaters, fans, tents, propane, weights, tables, chairs, lighting, any of these type things that you may have spent money on, all as a result of the pandemic and in your response. And then transportation, providing additional transportation options to maintain social distancing and worker and consumer safety protects against COVID-19. So for example, securing additional transportation services for workers or offering new delivery routes or distribution services. I'm sure that many folks who normally deliver items had to make accommodations for changing routes and things like that. And worker housing, providing worker housing that protects workers against COVID-19. You may have secured additional housing resources or services to maintain social distancing or to allow for quarantining of new or exposed employees. There may have been some segregation or separating of employees, and you needed extra space and had to pay for extra maybe rooms or accommodations. And lastly, medical, providing health services to protect workers against COVID-19. For example, offering or enabling vaccinations, testing, healthcare treatment, or for infected employees, or including any paid leave due to COVID-19 infection. So these are 6 areas of eligible activities that if you spent money in these areas, or you plan to spend money in one of these areas through the end of the year, you could put this on the application and possibly be reimbursed for that. Staff time to implement eligible COVID-19 response measures are eligible. So you can use the staff time. And providing documentation. So through this application process, they are not going to ask you for any documentation. But if you are going to receive grant funds from the federal government, USDA, then you are going to need to keep some documentation of these expenditures on file for the next 36 months. And you can do that through, maybe some email documentation, photos, other documentation, receipts, your accounting software, just something that documents that you made these expenditures for this particular purpose. And just, they're not asking for that documentation prior to grant submission, but in case at some point they ever want to come back and audit you, I would recommend that you have that documentation on file, and they are suggesting that you have that on file, and for 3 years post-award. Okay, so what is the process like? So there is a website that you can go to. It's listed right here, USDA PRS. This domain here, you can actually just, easiest thing to do is Google it, Pandemic Response and Safety Grant, and then you would come up with this right here, which will take you to this site. So gives you some information that we just gave you. There's a list of information here that we just basically went over. If you had additional questions, there is an FAQ at the top as well. So you can drop this down, ton more questions on eligibility and answers, more question and answers on, the application process and the DUNS number, which are things that we are going to go over with you. So there's that resource. Here you can check eligibility, which is, are you a small business, and do you fall within that NAICS code of eligible businesses? Step 2 is DUNS registration, which I will go over shortly. And then step 3 is apply now. So in the apply now, this is going to be the first page that you see when you go to the application. So you're going to need a DUNS number, and we're going to go into how you obtain that DUNS number. If you don't already have a DUNS number, you can look up to see if you have a DUNS. If you've ever received any USDA grants and you have a SAM account, then you have a DUNS number. But you can look that up to see if you have it. If you don't have it, you can apply, and we'll talk about that shortly. You'll need the name of your business, address, what industry makes you eligible. Here's, all of your NAICS codes, and what it corresponds with. So you just need to find the appropriate one and check it there. And that also, it includes producers, processors, and wholesalers. Then of course, what's your business structure? You're a nonprofit or a small business, primary contact information. And that's basically it for the demographics part of the application. Once you complete that part and you advance to the next stage, which I'm not going to do, but I will show you back in the slide here, you're going to come to this page. And so this is the final page of the application. On this page, all you are doing, they give you the instructions at the top there. All you are doing is entering the amount of money of the funds that you're requesting in each one of these categories, each one of these 6 categories. So if you went to your accounting software and you went back and searched through some of these items to see how much of the cleaning supplies you bought or how much you estimated you spent on the market pivot, you just enter that number under column B, funding request. If you spent $10,000 on implementing work safety measures, you would put that $10,000 there. There's another column, column C, which asks for your actual cost incurred. That's an optional column. So it's not mandatory. I don't have any information on why they have an optional column or how entering information in the optional column affects funding of your grant. They have not given us any information on that, and I haven't heard anything. But I mean, if you have that information, you're giving them additional information and may or may not help you win the grant award. the main thing is to get the funding request in the funding column B in each category that you provide. And I would probably recommend if you go over 20,000, I mean, you can request over 20,000. Of course, there's going to be a limit. The upper limit is 20,000. They're not going to give you more than 20,000. But it needs to be at least 1,500. If it's not, at least 1,500, then that's the minimum lower end of the limit. So also at the bottom of that page, once you enter all those requests under column B, it will automatically subtotal for you. If you don't enter anything in column C, it will remain not applicable under your actual cost. And then, of course, you have some certifications that you have to attest to. You're certifying here by clicking these boxes that your organization meets the size standards. You made these expenditures during that time period of January 27th, 2020 through the 31st, 21, and that you've implemented or plan to implement those activities. And you also are attesting that no other federal funds were used to cover the cost of the activities or this activity or activities. Then there's another certifying statement that says that everything's true to the best of your knowledge. These are pretty typical statements they get you to sign. And then you drop down a box at who's submitting this grant and you confirm it, and that's it. The grant is submitted. So it's pretty simple process. And if you have all your information together, then it shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes, I wouldn't think, to complete that application. The main thing is going to be having these DUNS and understanding your NAICS code and which category you're going to apply in. And lastly, how much. Going through your accounting software, looking at that and seeing what you can claim under those activities. So your DUNS number, for those that don't know what a DUNS is and why you need one, it's a 9-digit number, and it's issued by Dun & Bradstreet, which is a company or organization, and it stands for DUNS stands for your Data Universal Number System. And so how does the DUNS number fit into the grants world? Well, the federal government uses these DUNS to track flow of federal monies, and the DUNS is required to register for and access the sam.gov or grants.gov, which I mentioned earlier, that if you had received a grant and you have a SAMS account, then you would likely have the DUNS number. And who needs it? Commercial entities, nonprofits, government entities, private, public nonprofits, existing self-employed individuals, anyone who is likely going to try to get a federal grant would need this number. And does it cost anything to request a DUNS number? That would be no, exclamation mark. There are a lot of folks out there who will try to charge you for it. So you shouldn't have to pay anything for this number. You can even Dun & Bradstreet has a DUNS number that you can purchase. But for the purposes of a grant award through the federal government, you don't need to pay for it. It's free. Federal applicant grantees can obtain it for free. And services charging a fee to register your organization are usually scams and fraudulent. So just watch out for that. Because if you Google DUNS, you might get, if you Google apply for DUNS number, you might get some, sponsored ads and folks who say, hey, we'll help you for $500. So just watch out for that. You can call the D&B customer service and talk to them. They actually are very helpful. They have a good customer service line. At certain times, if there's a rush for grants, then you may have some issues getting through to them. But I know that I've called them many times and they've been very helpful. But the easiest way to do it is to register online And I'll show you that link shortly. I will also say that you'll be taken to a page that can begin request process, follow the prompts, and make sure that you ask for the federal contractor / grantees DUNS number. Like I said, if you just ask for a regular DUNS number, then there may be a charge because you'll go through a system, and it's kind of a different reason for getting that number. You want the grantee number, which is the free one. So also, before you go to apply for this DUNS, you need to get some information together, because they need 2 documents at least to verify your existence. The list of those documents can include your Secretary of State articles of incorporation, if you have that, some document that has your EIN or your TIN number on it. This is a confirmation letter that you get from the IRS whenever you initially get that EIN number. Any assumed name, DBA or assumed name certificate filing, lease agreements, utility bills, I would assume business licenses and things like that. It's basically trying to verify that you are who you say you are. And you would upload those items onto DUNS. So this is the DUNS portal, or their main page. And this is a link to DUNS. If we click here, it'll take us to DUNS. I'm going to show you 2 ways to get there, though. One is that you can go through this link, which seems to be taking a little while to load for some reason. Not sure why it's taking so long, unless the link is broken somehow. I'm going to go to the website here. X out of this. I'm actually going to take us back to the home page for the pandemic site, because this is a second way to get to the DUNS. So since you're on this page to apply, you check your eligibility. If you just click step 2, DUNS registration, and this is if you don't have the DUNS number, of course, it'll take you straight to, it finally popped up. It'll take you straight to a form that was specifically created for this PRS grant program. So in this case, you can just proceed through this, and it's going to ask you email. It'll ask you a series of information, and then at some point, it's going to ask you for those documents that you need to upload. Those 2 documents, right, that verify your existence. So this is probably, honestly, the easiest way to get to it. The other alternate route.
Jim, can I interrupt 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Before doing that, it's always worth searching, and you can look up Dun & Bradstreet lookup. And you probably, if you've been in business for a while as a farming or even a food center, you probably already have a number out there. So it's worth going there and looking at doing the lookup real fast, because you may already have that number, don't have to go through this process as well.
Yeah, this is the regular Dun & Bradstreet website homepage. If you go to their main homepage, which is dnb.com, right here under DUNS number, you can go to DUNS number lookup. And that way you can kind of see, like Jim says, if you may have that number out there already.
Right, and you only need to put in your name and address on that one. So
yep.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
No problem. Thank you. The other alternate way here is you go to get DUNS number, right? And then this is the part where you want to be, I'm a U.S. government contractor or grantee. If you just said, I have a U.S. based business, that's going to take you a different route than this one right here. So you're a grantee. And then it takes you through this, and you would go through this process. And that is one way to get the DUNS number. But like I said, the other way is to go through this special landing page that was created by DNB to support this grant process. So either one of those will get you to your ultimate goal, which is to obtain the DUNS number. And then you'll be on track. So that is the process. It's really not too difficult, especially having dealt with a lot of grants throughout throughout our time and working with farmers and producers and helping them with grants. This is a pretty simple one. So at this point, we have some information here. There's actually a link to the Center for Cooperative and Enterprise Development hosted at Clemson University, if you want to find out more about that. And also, these are all our contact emails. Actually, Brian, I have yours spelled wrong. I got to the letters reversed, I think, but it is BWHEAT, BWHEAT one.
You did not put my name as Brain Wheat.
Brain,
So,
yeah.
Okay. Yep. That's the most common
Anyway,
mistake.
These are, feel free to get in touch with us this way, and we'd be happy to help you through the process if need be, answer any additional questions. I know, there's always a weird question out there. So kind of off the wall.
There is a question in the chat, Jim. It says, I'm understanding correctly that for crop production, they'll need a minimum of $5 million in sales to qualify, which is not the case.
No, I haven't seen that in the regulation anywhere, where there's a minimum required threshold for sales for crop producers. I think the main criteria is that you are a small business, and then you fall within a certain NAICS code. And that outside of that, I don't think there are any other limitations put on.
So that question came from,
that is the max. Yeah.
okay, so that question
Okay.
came from one of the producers I was working with, because she looked at the NAICS codes, and then they have size standards in millions
Yes.
of dollars. And I think that's getting confused with requirement to apply.
That's
Yeah,
the
but
max
Brian-
to qualify as a small business.
Yeah, Brian did mention there are two kind of limitations. One is employee size and the other is revenue. When you look at SBA standards for, to be considered a small business. And, some of those NAICS, there might be a 5 million, it's like one of those rule of thumb limitations. It might be 5 million of revenue. But a lot of them are unlimited. So it just depends on the industry. You're right. You just have to see what industry that you're in. And there could be, you could be prohibited from applying if you don't fall within those standards. And if you go back to that link that we showed you right in the beginning, it should take you to a chart that tells you, what those limitations are. I don't know if USDA has it up. I think they do. But if they don't, you can go to SBA. You can actually Google SBA small business size standards, and it'll take you to this very long chart of NAICS codes, and it's 2 columns outside of the NAICS in description, which one column will be employee size and the other column will be revenue. So good question. Very good question.
Real quick question to drop in on this, and what I did with that, if you do that, you can actually print that out and it'll give you all of the codes under each one. But from a farming perspective, it looks like the specialty crops, which is more fruits and vegetables and mushrooms and things like that. What I did not see on the farming side was things like pork or beef or something like that. Only place I found that was more in the food manufacturing elements. So a pig farmer, which I happen to have one right down the road here that is not contracted with Smithfield or whatever the case may be, had to make a whole lot of market pivots, and I did not find them here, and I found that curious.
Well, under subsector 112, it says animal production. and aquaculture are eligible producers.
Yeah, the only drop downs, if you expand if you scroll down here a little bit, you go, there you go, get that. You see what's there is fish farming, shellfish farming, aquaculture, and well, that's bees and honey is that last one. That's all I found, which I found more of an observation than a question, I guess.
Okay.
But they do include them in food manufacturing. I guess if you want
Right.
to slaughtering them, you're good. But I don't see anywhere that I could find that fit the bill, which is unfortunate.
Very, yeah, for sure. Any other comments from anybody on that? Any other questions? Okay. There are no other questions. I appreciate everybody attending today. This is being recorded, so we will definitely send this out and get this distributed. And hopefully we can get a lot of folks in South Carolina funded for this grant. Hope everybody has a wonderful day and a great rest of the week.